the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on Helix OnPrem containers, and we'll be going through recent updates and futures. Joining me today is Bhavesh Rastogi. He's going to formally introduce himself shortly. We also have a team supporting us on the panelists that will be answering your questions. So just a couple of reminders. If you haven't used Zoom before, at the bottom there is a Q&A section. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in there. And we will also have roughly 15 to 20 minutes at the end where we'll take some of your questions to the live Q&A. So I'm now going to hand over, Bhavesh, if you can just go through our legal notice and introduction, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. And I'm sure that you are as excited as I am to present Helix OnPrem containers, recent updates, and the futures. Today's session, we're going to cover these 4 points overall as an agenda. We'll talk briefly about the containerization overview. I'm sure that most of you would have heard about it in our previous sessions, but considering the fact that we are at a point wherein we recommend all of our customers to move to Helix containers, we'll just briefly talk about the benefits of moving to containers. Then I'll talk about what is latest in on-premise, how our on-prem support policy has evolved recently, and what is the rationale behind it. And last but not least, we'll talk about the product security policies. We have our manager from the product security group at BMC who would briefly talk about the product security policy. Before I talk about this legal notice, let me briefly introduce myself as well. My name is Bhavesh. I'm based out of India. I'm working as a lead product manager, managing BMC Helix on-premise, ITSM and on-premise ITOM, along with being the product manager for HTM. My director of who's Rakeli Nehemiah, she's part of this call as well. During this call, if you have any questions related to on-premise, I'm sure that you all understand that the information contained in this session is highly confidential, and it is information owned by BMC and is being shared with all of you. Knowledge of BMC, it wouldn't be disclosed to any third party. In this release, when we talk about our what's next plan, when we talk about the product plans, it is about how we have those items planned and how we are tentatively planning to get them out in the upcoming year. But this does not give any assurance that these plans will result in any future releases of the natures described. So these are not commitments, but these should be taken up as our future plans at high level. The first topic, we'll talk about the Helix containerization overview, how from last couple of years, BMC Helix ITOM and ITSM are being deployed using the containers. And what is the rationale? What are the benefits of using Helix containers? First is about the scalability and the flexibility. The containers provide easily scale up and down based on the demand and providing the optimized resource usage. About the portability, containers ensure consistent deployment across multiple environments, on-premise, cloud, hybrid. We talk about the efficiency. Containers, they help you. Yes.
Can I just interrupt? Would you mind taking your camera off? I think there's a bit of a latency issue. Sorry to interrupt. It's dropping out a little bit. Thank you.
Sorry for that.
So yeah, if you just take yourself off camera, thank you.
Sorry for that.
Okay.
Is it better?
Already, yes. Thank you.
All right. So we talk about containers are lightweight, reducing the overall infrastructure overhead and helps improving the resource utilization. How containers help for a faster deployment, the quick updates and faster streamlining provisions, operations, and with the reduced downtime is what our motive behind containers as well. Containers help in highly available resources and the systems, automated failovers, self-healing capabilities. They ensure continuous service deliveries. The containers isolate the services, thereby ensuring in reduction of security risk and ensuring safer deployments. Last couple of years, how most of the organizations have been moving to containerize. As of 2024, the adoption and evaluation of container technologies continues to grow rapidly across organizations, and primarily driven by its ability to streamline the application deployment, scaling of the applications efficiently, and support modern cloud native architectures. Container orchestration, we believe that Kubernetes is the foundation for containerized architectures with widespread industry support and enabling automated industrialized processes. Our architecture is service-based architecture that is automatically orchestrated for your applications, including storage and the DNS. Like I talked about, the item that in care. So highly availability and super fast scaling with automated failover, monitoring reconfigurations and multi-zone stretch clusters, observability upwards in applications and downwards into the infrastructure, build dependencies, lighter infrastructure required on the CPU and the kernel for the best technology to enable the customers to deploy our solutions anywhere across the heterogeneous IT infrastructure, whether it be bare metal, BMC Helix Cloud, on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, you name it, and you can deploy our architecture, you can deploy a solution there. Up next, how as an organization we unlock faster innovation. With every release, we promote seamless upgrades and agility, scalability with our container-based deployment model. The shift allows on-premise customers to leverage the advantages of a container deployment model, previously exclusively restrained to SaaS offerings. Additionally, it consolidates the service and operations management products onto a single platform, thereby combining the capabilities of our legacy Remedy AI system and BMC Helix platform, the innovation suite, allowing the streamlining of deployment architecture and reduction of the operational cost. That's just an overview of the containers. Let's quickly briefly move to what is latest in our on-premise today and how we move to what are our plans for FY25. As of today, for our Helix latest items, we are supporting the latest technologies on the Kubernetes, OpenShift, Helm, Nginx. Up, we have introduced the service mesh support using Cilium mesh. We've also introduced Nginx Plus Ingress Controller. We've also upgraded all of our application clients to OpenSearch clients in all the apps. We have DB cleanup scripts available for Postgres and SQL, Postgres and Oracle. And last but not the least is clusters Redis support. When we talk about the support for latest on-premise technologies and higher DB versions, these are the currently on-prem versions, currently supported technologies for the on-premises. Current on-premise is designed to support Kubernetes 126 to 130. 130 is the latest version that our Helix on-premise versions releases support. On the OpenShift, we have 412 to 415 support available for the current release of ITSM and ITOM, with the aim to upgrade to upcoming new versions of Helix, or Kubernetes and OpenShift with the upcoming releases. On the Helm, we support 311 to 315. And last but not the least, Nginx Community Ingress Controller 1.8.1 to 1.11.1. The latest release of the ITSM, which is around the corner, is designed to support the following versions of the database of Postgres SQL version 15.x, and on the MS SQL side, the version database 2022 is also supported. We talk about the service mesh and end-to-end encryptions. So Cilium for service mesh and end-to-end encryption is to secure and manage the service-to-service communications with focus on traffic encryption and observability in the Kubernetes cluster. We had many of our customers sharing this requirements to encrypt data in the transit within the cluster, while rest of the data at rest. We currently offload our TLS at the load balancer, and all of the communication that happened between the pods are unsecured. And with that focus, we have introduced the service mesh end-to-end encryption. With Cilium installed and managing all the application pods, the applications operate normally without any defect and performance issues. The traffic coming from the ingress to applications is encrypted by the Cilium service mesh. Traffic coming from the applications to data lake is encrypted by service mesh, thereby ensuring the port-to-port encryption as well. With the focus on security, all of our containerized images are now standardized to Alpine images. The focus being on the security improvement has been attained by offering a smaller attack surface. This applies to all the container images that have not been transitioned to Alpine based images prior to the current releases. So we have been rolling it out on most of our images on Alpine. Prior to that, after that there was still some images that were not transitioned. With the current release of ITSM, Helix ITSM and Helix ITOM on premises, all of our images are standardized to Alpine. The transition has decreased the total number of security patches that are needed to be maintained and managed, thereby reducing the overall cost of ownership for the containerized architecture. The infrastructure layer also has adopted to Alpine-based images. For on the Helix ITSM side, we have separated the email engine from the server. Currently, the email engine was integrated with the servers, and we had this challenge wherein any issue within the email engine requiring a restart of the email engine necessitate restarting the entire pod. And by decoupling this email engine from the server, it has given a beneficial push to the performance, ensuring that only the email engine is restarted independently without affecting rest of the pods. The approach definitely helps the email engine to be managed and scaled separately from the main application server, and thereby ensuring a greater flexibility and reliability. Along with separation of the email engine server, we have separated out our plugin servers as well into the individual containers. Separating into plugin containers into the individual containers involves deployment of each plugin server as its own containerized service. The isolation has been designed so that each plugin can be managed, deployed, and scaled independently of others. It enhances flexibility as each plugin can be updated or restart without intervening or impacting the other plugin pod. Additionally, this approach improves the security, our resource management by providing clear boundaries and resource allocation for each plugin server. So few of the plugin servers on a borderline which have been separated are platform plugin, report plugin, ITSM plugin, Atrium plugin, norm plugin, and reconciliation engine. This is so this was all about what has been G8 for our what is latest in our current releases. Let's talk about what is coming next in FY25. First item we want to focus is allowing the customers to bring their own logging. So this is what we have as the highest priority item that we are working on and ensuring that our customers are able to bring their own logging and eventually stream their logs to a third-party solution. We also are working on a solution wherein customers can monitor their on-premises using Behon on a separate observability stack. So it is monitoring using the monitor. As of today, we have DB refresh pipeline option available for Postgres and SQL. And we would finally be and eventually be extending this refresh pipeline option to Oracle. We are working on a minimize IS footprint deployment, which is deploying the whole in a Helix ITSM, but only loading the required applications for your usage. We are working on providing encrypted DB connections for Postgres, for SQL, and for Oracle. Along with that, we are focused on supporting the latest and the greatest or nearly the greatest DB flavors for Helix ITSM and the platform Postgres versions. And last but not the least, we are working on our on-premise solution compliance with the FIPS 140 or FIPS 143, 142 or 140-3. Moving next to our on-premise support policy, how our support policy has recently been revamped, how are the recent revised ITSM and ITOM cadence is going to look like. BMC Helix on-premise containerized support policy has been revamped, thereby changing to a 12 months active support for every new release and a 6 months of maintenance, thereby allowing 18 months of support instead the additionally 5 years support. This is in alignment with the Kubernetes lifecycle and the shorter and faster life cycles of our orchestrations platform. As of today, our Kubernetes ITSM release cadence is aligned in a way that our ITSM on-premise release happens every 6 months and ITOM release happens every 3 months. With FY25 coming, we have revisited and revised our release cadence of Helix ITSM as well to every 3 months release. For every release, our focus is on supporting the latest versions of the technology, primarily focusing on Kubernetes, OpenShift, Helm, Nginx, and the third-party software versions that our softwares are dependent on. We ensure that every version supports at least one Kubernetes version, which is still in support, and at least 3 Kubernetes versions already supported. And as and when needed for a particular release, we also ensured post-GA support to our releases. All of our on-premise versions are a first-class citizens. On-prem is a first-class citizen with BMC. So we have a full long-term strategy, and we have our future roadmap to support on-premise and introduce new features, which we briefly talked in our what next in FY25. With every release, and we have a hard and strong strategy to develop tools and best practices to ease our deployment, upgrade, and operations. We also ensure that we maintain high levels of quality and security. While SaaS stable releases with as many as bugs, we also ensure that all our on-premise releases are as secure as possible, and that we'll briefly talk in our product security policy. This is how our current ITSM release updated support schedule looks like. 21.501, 21.502, 21.302, 21.304, 21.305, the last 5 in this table, are already end of version support with their end of support already reached, and these versions are no longer supported. 21.306, 21.310, and 22.105 are in limited support with their end of support reaching 1st December 2024, 5th March 2025, and 12th October 2024, respectively. The currently supported versions which are still in full support are 22.106, 23.301, and 23.303. For 22.106, we had an exceptional approval to extend the support, allowing the customers to get a platform to upgrade to this version and thereby moving to the latest and greatest. So for 23.303, which is our current on-premise versions in a controlled availability mode, the release date stands as the support date stands as the full support end date as 1st October 2025 and end of support as 1st April 2026. Talking about the revised release cadence of the service management in 2025, this is how our on-premise and SaaS release are going to look like. So we have SaaS releases happening every month throughout the year. Starting 2025, instead of ITSM releases happening every 6 months, we are going to have a quarterly releases. All of our ITSM major or minor on-premise releases would be focused and based on the .2 version of the SaaS. So end of the quarter, which is March, June, September, and December, we would be focusing to schedule our on-premise releases, which would be, and the release would be tentatively named as 25.1.2, 25.2.2, 25.3.2, and 25.4.2, respectively for the 4 quarters. The one thing about the revision has been done in order to ensure that all of our Helix ITSM and ITOM release are synchronized, ensuring that we all are on the latest branch of the removing the dependency to maintain in multiple branch of the Helix ITSM, and we'll have just one branch starting FY25, which would be maintained for active releases, which would be 25.x. On the ITOM release schedule, updated support schedule, this is how the schedule looks like. The 2105, 21.302, 22.2 are end of version support already. 22.4, 23.102, and 23.202 are in limited support with their end of support reaching in January. 23.4, 24.1, 24.2, 24.3, and 24.2 are in full support as of today. For FY25, the operation management release cadence looks as following. All of our ITOM on-premise release are based on the .0 SaaS versions. So every second month or the first month of the quarter would be how our on-premise release are gonna be based on. So 25.1, 25.2, 25.3, and 25.4 are gonna be our on-premise ITOM on-premise releases. And last but not the least, we move to our on-premise product security policy, BMC security focused deployments. For this, I'll like to pass on to my BOC colleague, Yogesh, to talk on the product security policy.
Thank you, Bhavesh. Yeah, so product security is critical pillar of your organization, and we maintain our commitment to deliver the safe and secure solutions. Yes, to support that, we have integrated all the security in our SDLC, and we are performing scans on daily basis of our code, which opens the defects with the developer, and that gets fixed immediately within the development cycle only. Also, for any releases that is happening, we are scrutinizing all the security vulnerabilities and ensuring that our solutions are safe and secure. Also, we are committed to resolve any vulnerabilities that are found at earliest as possible. That's why we have integrated the security in SDLC, just to ensure that whatever new vulnerabilities are introduced in our product because of third parties should get addressed within the same development cycle. Next slide, please. The containerized product of security policy. So here it is the policy. We are following the CVSS core systems, which is popular and the industry standard. For any third-party reported vulnerabilities, we ensure that we follow the CVSS score and address all critical and high severity vulnerabilities immediately. Also, any vulnerability which is exploitable, we are ensuring that we have given the priority to those vulnerabilities, and those exploitable vulnerabilities should be mitigated immediately once that is identified. Also, since the vulnerabilities are coming on every day, the count is very high, as you see in all the CVs in the market. So we would like to have our customers to have some exception process for any vulnerabilities where the major code changes or the major refactoring, the architecture changes are required. That will give us some time to fix that vulnerability, and we'll provide you the fixes as soon as possible. Also, since we have integrated the security in SDLC that fixes vulnerabilities on the almost daily basis. We are encourage all our customers to use our up-to-date version, so that will have all the security fixes in that. With that, thank you very much. I will hand over to the Bhavesh.
Thank you, Yogesh. And with this, we come to the end of our webinar and the session around on-premise recent GA items and what is coming next. I'm sure that this would have given you some clarity on what is happening, what is our plan for FY25, how our support policy has evolved, how our release cadence have changed. We have some resources mentioned in this deck. I'm sure Sam is going to share with all of you, which can be useful for all of you to refer and stay updated with on-premises. Thank you. I'll pass over to Sam.
The links that we've provided in today, we'll share those with the slides. There's a lot of really good content we put onto our webinar page on communities. So for those that are interested and following any past content, you can find all the recordings there. I'm working with Raquel and the wider team that are also part of working with Bhavesh and Yogesh on a couple of other webinars that are coming up over the next couple of weeks. The last webinar we will actually be running as a company will be on 17th of December, and then we will be coming back into the new year with some more webinars, so keep an eye out on that. So as far as sort of questions, I know there's been a few that's been in the chat, and Raquel, I know you're answering a question from Gaurav. So what I'd like to do is take the rest of the time. We may not need the full half an hour for live questions. So I would just ask the audience out there, if you've got any questions, either raise your hand or you can write some questions into the Q&A. We've got a full team of panelists that can answer your questions today. So if we go back, Gaurav, to your question, Raquel, if you'd like to just answer Gaurav's question. I'm just going to find Gaurav in the audience. So Gaurav, if you want to also talk to us live, I've just unmuted you. I think you've got 2 questions now. Can you hear us, Gaurav?
Yes, Sam.
Hello. Good morning.
Hello,
Good
hello,
afternoon.
everyone.
Hello. So do you want to ask your question? I could see Raquel was going to answer it for you, and I'm just going to start unmuting everybody else.
I was going to ask about the more details. So
Yeah, so my first question is, can't we make the prerequisite, a clear-cut prerequisite in the documentation that this is what I need in case I have a certain kind of infrastructure, or let's say if I'm going to deploy it probably on AWS, or whether it is there in the on-prem data center. What all things basically what I need, and what will be the supported versions of those specific module. Like I have mentioned in my second question, in one of our implementation, we struggled about the dynamic storage provisioning. Okay, and we were not. I mean, because we are not from the storage side. Okay, we are the application expert, and I'm dealing with the Helix ITSM from past 15 years now. Not the Helix, probably it's starting with the Remedy and then now Helix. We were struggling that which solution basically we should go ahead with in order to do this dynamic provisioning, and we came to know there is some tool called Longhorn. Probably might need some. It is an open source, and but it needs some skills, right, to do that kind of dynamic provisioning of the storage. So that was something which was missing from the documentation, and we had to struggle a lot. So it'll be better if we can get some kind of hints that these are the tools, or these are the OEMs probably, or the open source tools which we can look in order to do some specific kind of work when we are implementing Helix ITSM specifically on-prem. Okay, so if we can cluster these requirements together and put it in the documentation, probably it will be good for everyone. That this is what I need, this license is what I need, this will be provided by the BMC. So I can clear cut, you can say, carve out my scope and the licensing while proposing this solution.
well, I thought we do that. We have the system requirements page.
Yeah.
We have an extensive set of pages for preparation and planning of your deployment. If you feel that we are still missing details on those, I mean, from expectation standpoint, what would you want to see? You can even go into the documentation and comment directly on those pages, and then we can understand and edit those pages specifically. I think we have a lot of details added there. I agree that, it does require some skill set. And we also have a section in the documentation explaining that? What skill set do you need and where you can get those details? I have my colleagues here from the SEAL team. Maybe you want to comment on the dynamic storage. Maybe you have more details on that.
Thanks, Kelly. Yes. So the dynamic storage, that's a feature of the storage class that's available in Kubernetes. And as you're aware, we state in the documentation that we support any high performance block storage system, but not all of them support the volume expansion. The Kubernetes documentation, excuse me, it does include some steps to identify or a list of those that do. So we'll add that to the information that's circulated afterwards.
In addition, I can say we have a lot of information in our community, and sometimes we publish things in blogs and answer questions. So I would recommend going to communities and submitting questions, starting discussions, getting answers. A lot of these questions could be answered through community if it's not found in the formal documentation.
No, I'm pretty much aware about that. Okay. The only thing is there are certain specific things which I'm pointing it out over here, like dynamic storage. It is mentioned over there that we support, I mean, from the BMC standpoint, we support high performance storage. Okay. And yes, the Kubernetes will do that dynamic provision, but in some cases we need some additional support from other open source tool as well, like Longhorn, which I have mentioned, right? So that is something where we need your guidance, or it should be clearly documented somewhere. I mean, I was not able to find it in the community probably. But this is something where we can fill in the gaps and probably provide a better implementation experience to all other SIs as well.
Understand, but you do realize that BMC cannot take any responsibility for telling you how to manage your cluster, right? So we say we support this or that, and you can choose to use those technologies, and we certify the ones that we are actually testing. We're publishing that. But as with sizing, we cannot tell you how to run your cluster. Sometimes customers run clusters which are shared with multiple other applications. They have their own ideas of how to run their clusters or Kubernetes. And therefore, I mean, we refrain from sharing those details. Sometimes we can give ideas or recommend tools that we use internally as such, but not as formal, fully tested recommendation, right? That's why we cannot really specify each and every detail in our documentation.
Okay.
And also, Gaurav, we focus on certifying what we have tested. Okay. For example, if we talk about this long haul, if it is not there in the list, that we always say that this is not what we have tested, and there's no way we can claim support for it. But on case by cases, when we are requested, for example, if you talking specifically about this, we evaluate, just by reading or, consulting our architects, principal architects, to know what exactly could be impact if a customer is using it. So we might not test it, but we can definitely suggest and make recommendations that, this is what you can use, but they are still counted as an unconfirmed support per our support policies, because this is not something that we would have tested and claim in our docs. Talking about the storage part, we do talk very clearly about, for example, Ceph and NFS being certified by BMC, right? So if it is something is not mentioned, that is, like Raquel said, that we cannot really maintain in that list of what is not. Instead, we would focus and publish on what is done and certified by us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Okay, we have another question. Mark, I can see you answering it. I don't actually know who's asked that question, so maybe when we read this out, whoever's put this question in, if you want to come off mute. So the next question is, can local disks of all worker node storage be used as a block storage solution to install the ITSM application, and will it act as dynamic provisioning for the cluster PVCs, or a dedicated block storage is only the solution? If you can provide some input.
Yeah, I'll take that as I was answering, Sam. So it's a property of the storage provider in Kubernetes. So some of the storage class providers, such as Longhorn, for example, and there's another one called OpenEBS, they do support, or they do provide a mechanism for you to use the node local disks as the backing store for the storage class. That's really then a question for your system architects as to whether you want to do it that way, whether the disks are high enough performance, whether they are sufficiently large to handle the requirements, and how you deal with the possibility of a node failing and you losing that type of disk. Longhorn, for example, does allow replication, so it is technically possible. Whether it meets the requirements for BMC will depend on exactly how you implement it. The majority of customers that I'm aware of are using dedicated storage systems because they're easier to manage and give better performance than relying on what's available on the nodes.
Hopefully that's answered the question. I don't know who did ask that question, but if you can just reply back and say that that's covered what you need. Okay, thanks, Mark. So that's all our questions that we've got left in the chat. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but this is a perfect opportunity to come off mute or raise your hand or put a question in. We still have roughly 20 minutes or so. If there is no further questions, then we'll give you back that time. And while we're doing that, Raquel and team and Barwesh, was there any other key takeaways or anything specific that you want to do as a call out to the audience today?
Yeah, I do want to mention for the people in the webinar that we've made ITSM 23303 a controlled availability release. I don't know if you got the notice, or if you'll try and download that release, you will get it. The reason behind that is that we've added some security fixing fairly close to the release end, which required more resources, which we haven't been able to fully test. And therefore, the numbers for sizing baked into that release is more aligned with the 23301 release. We felt that it is not the right thing to have our customers try and tweak the numbers, because even if we gave you a custom sizing for this release, it should work. There shouldn't be any performance issues with it. There shouldn't be any quality or security issues with it, but you will need to tweak the numbers as you go with the additional hardware. Even the added hardware is less than 10%. It's not that big. And we are working to test and certify and make sure we have the right sizing for the next coming release, 23304. That was the reason behind making it controlled availability. We urge you to wait for 23304, which will be coming at the end of the month, beginning of December. We will update the numbers for the sizing, and we have a bunch of additional features baked into 23304 in ITSM. It will be also tested on the latest technologies and be compatible with the existing ITOM or common services, common platform services that are out there, 24.3 and 24.4. So if you don't have to, please wait for 23304.
Thank you, Raquel, for sharing that. If there's any questions, obviously put that into the chat. We do have one more question. Will Gen AI capabilities be made available for on-premise Helix platform?
Yes, I want to make sure that everyone understands that whatever we're adding will require a connection to a third party or external vendor like OpenAI or Google, Gemini, and others. We are not maintaining the model locally or allowing deploying and hooking into a local LLM model and compute. So basically, yes, if you have an LLM account like OpenAI, and soon we're going to add support for Llama 3 and for Google Gemini, Then in 23303 and even more so in 23304, you are able to connect to those engines and bring your own LLM and compute to work with our Helix GPT set of features, similar to what we do with our SaaS customers. There is an additional cost for that because you pay for your account with Microsoft or with Google or with the vendors that are providing those LLMs. But you will be able to use the AI capabilities of Helix GPT across all our products in ITSM. And we're working to add that also for the ITOM or AIOps set of features in the future releases.